inform how public health officials should proceed in this area until now. And what I'd like to do is walk the audience through I think, a very important article that was just published as recently as Monday of this week. And it's determining the optimum strategy for reopening schools, published in the journal Lancet. Now, this may look a little complicated, so let me attempt to walk the audience through this. In this figure, at the bottom, or the x-axis, you see time in months. On the y-axis, or vertical, you see the number of new infections. At the top, you see the paradigm of full school reopening that Dr. Escobedo described, and alternatively, to its right, part-time rotation school reopening. This study, using a computer simulation, looked at two different approaches. The first, the school reopens with minimal testing, contact tracing, and isolation. And at the bottom, what Dr. Escobedo and the School Reopening Task Force and Kahala are studying is school reopening with routine testing, contact tracing, and isolation. Now, with these two scenarios, you see two humps in that top figure. That first hump corresponds to the original surge that we all experienced and lived through in March. However, without appropriate testing, we see this second recurrence. And it's often talked about in the media and in the press. And here we see that it's predicted to be 2 to 2.3 times greater than the surge we saw in March. The concept here is with routine testing, contact tracing, and isolation, we can completely eliminate the second recurrence. Now here, they calculate it will require up to 75% testing. Currently, we are at about 18% testing nationally. Now, these findings are similar. If you see for part-time rotation school reopening, it's only delayed, and we delay the peak rather than seeing it in December timeframe, in February and March. So these data seem to suggest, again, a computer simulation, that there is benefit in reopening with routine testing, contact tracing, and isolation. Now, the CDC has endorsed testing and daily symptom monitoring. The testing needs to be safe and efficient screening and open to everyone who needs it. Daily practices, as Dr. Escobedo outlined, good hygiene, social distancing, staying home if feeling sick, adequate ventilation within the classrooms, protective personal equipment, sanitation, and disinfection. The idea is that in the absence of any spikes in COVID-19, these restrictions can be gradually relaxed. So how do you safely reintegrate a school? Most schools have plans that fall within what we call continuous quality improvement cycles. We discuss plans. And similarly in Chula Vista School District, very, very intensive efforts across a number of different functions, people, to plan how they're actually going to do this. And then there's the execution phase, which is equally, if not more critical. We then need to check the outcomes and then perhaps refine how we're actually acting. What Kahala Biosciences is focused on is that checking aspect. We feel it makes much more sense that as you implement your plans, you actually check the outcomes before then progressing to the next phase, perhaps. Safely reintegrating schools in this quality improvement approach attempts to achieve two objectives. The first is to evaluate the effectiveness of regular testing and daily symptom monitoring to prevent COVID-19 spread. And second, to safely guide relaxation of school interventions. So how do we do this? Here again, we rely on the Centers for Disease Control in their proposal to state and regions in terms of gating criteria. The testings occur on 14-day intervals and principally rely on viral tests, finger prick antibody tests, daily symptom monitoring on weeks 1, 3, and 5. Following each of these testing events, we then analyze the data to see whether or not we have an absence of COVID-19 spiking. If that's the case, then that helps inform the school's decision makers into relaxation of their school interventions. So what are the pillars of a successful testing program? Kahala Biosciences has extensive experience in doing large-scale testing at this point. We feel, number one, you must have access to reliable and accurate COVID-19 antibody and viral tests. All of our tests are FDA authorized. We use personal protective equipment. All participants will be wearing masks, all of our clinical staff. And so we're blessed by having a large number of devoted and dedicated physicians, nurses, medical assistants, who all wear full personal protective equipment and employ antiseptic techniques. We use certified laboratories, and so we have close affiliations with certified labs that process all of our tests in compliance with CDC guidelines and FDA regulations. Now, many of you have heard the backlog of tests being processed through labs, often taking 1 to 2 weeks. Our results are returned within 48 hours maximum. We employ a large cadre of healthcare providers. Both Dr. Miyamoto and myself are physicians. And so we have broad and large networks of healthcare providers to assist in these testing events. And then finally, there's logistical 24/7 customer support. We do not discount the scale of doing a large school district. And so all of the experience that we've had heretofore come to bear. And we have found in our customer satisfaction surveys after events that this inspires confidence, and it is actually quite efficient. The Adiona solution is an important tool in facilitating large-scale testings. Adiona is a software program that is in the cloud and is accessible by your smartphone. This enables simple, reliable, and rapid testing at schools or places of business. Adiona is designed to seamlessly integrate with the highest quality tests, and it can track your symptoms, and I'll show you an example of that. Finally, it is HIPAA compliant, meaning it safeguards your personal data using state-of-the-art blockchain encryption. So any information that you insert in there is yours alone, unless you provide permission for other people to access it. And this is an example of what we call a dashboard. Here, this is a COVID-19 dashboard. You see 3 dials that describe your symptom tracker results, viral antibody tests. And so if one is in a position of being a decision maker, a school administrator, and you want to, at a glance, see where your school stands from the standpoint of children or staff that might have symptoms, positive viral tests, or the presence of antibody, one can do so very, very quickly. On the left, you see something called cohort A, B, and C. This can be readily tailored to the organization. So cohort A could be a school. It could be a classroom within the school. It could be isolating only the teachers within a classroom, within a school. So Kahala will work with you to tailor this dashboard so it can provide meaningful insights in terms of your progress along reopening. At the bottom, you see a list of bars, and that tells you at a glance where you are progressing in terms of your school reopening. We appreciate that none of this occurs in a vacuum, and so you'll want to know what is the current rates that Dr. Escobedo showed in your community. And so you see a heat map that illustrates the number of cases that could be seen in the Chula Vista vicinity. So what are the next steps? The Chula Vista Elementary School District Continuous Quality Improvement Project does require buy-in among all the stakeholders. At a high level, the project likely will include regular COVID antibody viral testing every few weeks on at least 3 occasions in accordance to the recommendations of the CDC. Daily symptom monitoring is important, and this is where the Adiona solution on your smartphone will allow you to enter your symptoms on a daily basis. Participation is voluntary among all students, parents, teachers, and administrators. Obviously, the data is more robust with the greater participation that we can have. Finally, we feel that an independent ethics review board must approve the clinical protocol as well as our consent form, and it's made available to all school decision makers to help inform relaxation of school interventions. So with that, I would just want to thank the audience, Dr. Escobedo and the School Reopening Task Force for this opportunity. Perhaps Dr. Miyamoto, do you have any other comments?
I just want to kind of stress the overarching goal of the potential partnership to provide information and data upon which some of these very difficult decisions can be made. There's lots of unknown, lots of the unknown still out there. For example, my youngest daughter is a college junior, and at this point in August, we're still not sure if it's going to be online or in person. So acknowledging still there's a lot of the unknown. I think when we have more data, more information, that's the way to make the best, most reasoned decisions, and that's a goal of what we were trying to provide.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dr. Escobedo.
Thank you.
I'm going to go into some questions from the public right now from the group. First question is, how can parents working remotely best balance their jobs and new homeschooling virtual schooling for the coming school year?
It's going to be a difficult balance, isn't it? When you're working and you have to ensure students are being accountable for their jobs. So we are creating vignettes of videos to help our parents establish a place for the child to work, to make sure they have headphones, to make sure that they understand what the assignments are. I send bi-weekly newsletters where I give parent tips and how do you gear your household for distance learning. So, sometimes you have more than one child, many do, and then you have these competing, classes happening at one time. How do you isolate the students throughout the household? Then there's obviously broadband issues. So, we definitely there are practices and habits and tips that parents can follow, and I can send you actually those tips. Lisa, maybe you can send it to the group as well.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. The next question, will Chula Vista Elementary School District be providing laptops to all students like San Diego Unified did to all of their students?
We have actually surveyed our parents on whether they need laptops or not. And in many places, parents do have the laptops. Those that need it, we definitely will provide it. What we found even more of a need is actual broadband access, right? Especially when you have 2 or 3 trying to connect to the internet. And the city of Chula Vista has been just amazing in donating what we call hotspots. And we've I think dispersed over 400 hotspots throughout our city. Probably will be sending out more so that our students will be provided hotspots. And I'm actually in partnership with Sweetwater also to ensure, because we share students, and so Sweetwater will be also joining us in providing hotspots.
I muted, sorry about that. The next question, will the number of daily live instruction minutes be comparable to what students receive during normal times, especially for the younger grade levels? You mentioned as
Right.
not optimal for distance learning?
The instructional minutes will differ for distance learning. They will be shorter in scope, and I can send you those minutes so you can share it with the participants. But there are minutes that the state has shared. They're called minimum instructional minutes, and what we're trying to do as a district is create also project-based type of learning environment where it's not just all screen time. The kids can actually work in projects at home as well. Utilizing your hands is an important ingredient, that kinesthetic learning rather than just the visual learning, that constant visual learning every day. So we're going to try to balance that.
Life lessons too. Great. Perfect. Yes. What oversight will be given to teachers in the distant learning model to ensure equitable education for all students?
Great question. Through Microsoft Office, we have the ability to monitor the number of times students log in. Myself, as well, our administrators will be able to do walkthroughs in the virtual classrooms and provide feedback. Definitely the accountability will be greater. Plus, I probably will be sending surveys to our parents to see how we're doing. We definitely, checking how we're providing instruction is critical. So we definitely know that we'll always have to improve our process.
Any guesses to how this experience will affect children developmentally?
I do worry about the social emotional aspect, Lisa, especially our homeless students. We have about 180 families that are homeless, right? That really bothers me. And we're blessed. We have an organization like South Bay Community Services that have been amazing in providing a place. In fact, I think they just received some RVs where they will be able to house some of our families, but that really keeps me up at night.
The next question is, where's the case data analysis coming from? Sweden has a case study, and the comparative studies out of Germany show the school attendance is low too.
Dr. Miyamoto, or Doctor, can you help me with that one?
Yeah, actually, let me answer that question. And so one of the things that's very striking when we look at data that are focused on children is how small the sample sizes actually are. And so today, studies that have 100, 150 students make sort of claims and conclusions that many are trying to extrapolate to their own areas. We appreciate that schools do not exist in a vacuum, and their children, once leaving school, then enter the homes. And therefore, it really reflects in terms of the community rates of COVID-19. Sweden, Germany, they've done an excellent job in terms of lowering their community rates of COVID-19. And so it makes sense that in their schools, it would also share in those low rates. As Dr. Escobedo illustrated, and many public officials have echoed, that is not the case here in many communities in the United States. And so to think that you can mimic what happens in other countries where there are low inherent rates of COVID-19 and say the same thing will happen in areas with much higher rates is certainly questionable. And I think that is something. I see another question about whether or not we're going to test everyone or if only a certain percentage will be tested. It is our hope that whether or not the children, staff are tested or not, we'll still be able to capture their daily symptom inventory. And so we may be able to identify by their symptoms whether or not children, teachers, administrators are developing COVID-19, even in the absence of viral testing. And so here we have essentially a control group that is not participating in the study. And so I think it will enlighten us to see whether or not what they've reported in Sweden and Germany and other places is relevant to our communities here in San Diego. Dr. Miyamoto, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, there are limited information about school reopenings and risk of transmission. As Francis said, it does depend a lot on community disease activity. There are anecdotes of school reopenings that have been complicated by outbreaks and the need to close down the school again. And so, everyone's strategy and hope is to be able to avoid anything like that. And I think the best approach to that is to just have as much information as possible to act quickly and proactively. If we do have this effective strategy of testing, identification of cases, and isolation, again, if we can reduce the rate of transmission, the so-called R value, then I think that's the best way to allow for a careful and lowest risk reopening. So the experience is accumulating in the U.S. and internationally, and it's still early. We're still learning a lot, but I think based on our best kind of analysis of the potential for the information to help inform decisions, this is what we hope to deploy.
Thank you. The next question is there a chance Childress Elementary School District will add the required distance learning teaching hours to match the 6 hour per day for San Diego?
I'm not certain I understand that question. Can you repeat it again, please, Lisa?
Sure. Is there a chance that Childress Elementary School District will add the required distant learning teaching hours to match the 6 hour per day required by San Diego?
Okay, I believe there were instructional minutes required by the state, and those were minimal minutes. And so there'll probably be situations where when you look at instruction and the assignment, it will be way above 6 hours. But we're looking at what we call synchronous versus asynchronous learning, where there'll be times when the student will be live with the teacher or will be interacting with what we call a learning system program, such as Achieve 3000 or iReady. There'll be a combination of learning opportunities throughout the day. So the question to that answer, yes, utilizing all the structures we have, it can go way beyond the 6 hours of instruction.
Thank you. The next question is, how far in advance of the first day of school will parents receive the daily school class schedule?
How far in advance will they receive the daily? Hopefully within a week.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How are teachers being professionally trained to teach online learning?
There's the instructional aspect, and then there's the technical aspect, right? And so our teachers receive several hours of Microsoft Teams training and utilizing, the technology to best instruct children, and that has to be ongoing. And there's the instructional delivery that, our plans is to do not just, a one-time instruction, but continual instruction throughout the year. Especially in the area of our new systems such as iReady and new different types of instruction in an online experience through distance learning. We just purchased a book authored by Doug Fisher specifically on distance learning. So we're going to look through those best practices and apply them in our district.
Perfect, thank you. What protection is in place to avoid unwelcome people entering the live classes?
That's a great question. And one of the things about Microsoft Teams, that's one of the reasons why we we are utilizing that platform just because of the safeguards Microsoft Office provides so that other outside elements don't come in. So that's really, really important. Obviously, you know, some students can be rascals and they can try to circumvent the process, but there are definite firewalls in place that won't allow that, at least minimize that from happening.
So much to consider when going through these.
Oh
processes.
yeah, no, absolutely.
And you've thought of them all, so I want to thank you for your great leadership. The next question is, how soon can third graders and under go back to school?
Those will be the first ones. Once we are able to open up schools, we want our little ones to come first. Yes, so we're looking at what we call a gradual release of responsibility, but starting with our youngest children.
So I think this kind of goes with the other question. Will the online platform for learning restrict student-to-student chat, or at least allow the teacher oversight?
You will still have the opportunity to chat. Mm-hmm. Students will. However, we're working with Microsoft to be able to control that at a better place. So right now the program is able to mute everyone, right? So that you can minimize that amount of chat. They probably can still type in, a few suggestions or connections to their friend, like passing notes virtually. Probably can still do that, but at least speaking, they won't interrupt the teacher. Oh. Sorry, Lisa, I just muted you.
It was me. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for attending this morning, and I want to thank your great team. It literally does take a village to raise our youth. And I want to thank you for your leadership and looking at how the best, safest way. And it's not just about the COVID-19, there's also the social aspect and understanding what our families are going through, what our business leaders are going through, what our employees are going through, and looking at our whole community as a whole, and to bring in the expertise of the doctors also. I think it's really important, and you want people to feel safe. And after going through your presentation today, I understand that you're hitting all those levels. And we're all in this together. We're learning as we go, but we want to ensure the safety of our community and the partnerships that you have formed with your board directors and your cabinet and your team. I just want to thank you on your great leadership for our community, and thank you for the partnerships that you have. I think Laura, are you still there, Laura? We can't have announcements at this time because we're still on the webinar, but if you're looking to meet people, we have a golf tournament coming up on August 31st at the San Diego Country Club. If you've dreamed of playing at the private country club and seeing people again, you're outdoors, it'll be safe. Go to our chamber website. We have proceeds going to the South Bay Family YMCA. We're thankful for their partnership with the elementary school district also and the reopening of our schools. And then we have our leadership Chula Vista class that will be starting in September, 10-week program, all the ins and out of being a great leader in Chula Vista. And that will be an online as we're going through the COVID-19. And hopefully next year we'll be back in person. So I want to thank everyone, and I'll turn it over to Laura, and thank you for allowing us to present today.
Yeah, I too wanted to thank you so much, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Miyamoto, and Mr. Duvay. Thank you. This was amazing. And our next First Friday breakfast will be on September 11th. So it won't be the first Friday, it'll be the second Friday. And we look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.